WWE is currently in the midst of one of the more interesting stories they've had over the last year, with CM Punk and Seth Rollins exchanging barbs leading up to what will likely be an epic encounter on the premiere episode of WWE Raw on Netflix. And if we go back and look at the history of Rollins and Punk leading up to this moment, this is precisely the kind of storytelling that fans and the WWE want this company to be telling, because it leans into many of the realities that have been under the surface for over the past decade between the two, bringing it to light and making it part of what we see on TV. And if we just start with the fact that Rollins, in the most recent promo battle between himself and Punk, mentioned the fact that Punk went to AEW as a cash grab and said that he essentially burned out there. The even mention of AEW shows you that WWE is truly in a new era. They are not afraid to go and make note of things that happened in other companies, whereas in years prior that would have been considered taboo. Under Triple H and this new era, they seem to be more open to that than ever, and it only accentuates the storytelling of this feud, because one of the things that has been talked about more so than anything over the past couple of years in wrestling period has been CM Punk and his controversies within AEW. From the Hangman Page promo, to him shooting on Page in a subsequent Dynamite, to the Brawl Out fight, the Brawl In fight, everything that Punk has done in AEW has been must see, including the backstage stuff. So to bring that to light and do it in a way that actually helps promote one of your biggest matches of the year on arguably your biggest show of the year, that shows you that WWE is dedicated to telling stories in a different way, and it shows you they are dedicated to specifically tell Punk versus Rollins in the correct way. Because even positioning the AEW stuff, it really calls into question CM Punk as a babyface, because nothing that Rollins said in his promo was incorrect. Punk does have a reputation of being difficult to work with, both publicly and in storyline. His feuds in AEW and WWE have proven that. And Rollins, who values the more team dynamics both in storyline and outside of the ring, likely views Punk as disruptive. And that's where the blending of the reality and fiction really comes into play, because even when Punk wasn't a part of WWE, Rollins was not afraid to take shots at him. Rollins backstage had always viewed Punk in reality as someone who took the easy way out, someone who left when things got hard, whereas Seth Rollins was always the guy who stuck it out. Regardless of what he was given, regardless of the garbage that he was told to do, he tried to make the most of it and still maintained how over he was despite every obstacle thrown in his way. And that is likely why, both in reality and in the storyline, he views Punk as someone who was not only disloyal to WWE, whereas Rollins has always been the flagship bearer of the company. He views Punk as a weakling, someone who doesn't deserve the adulation that he has, someone who doesn't deserve the impeccable reputation that precedes him, someone who does not deserve to be on the same level as Rollins, because in Rollins' eyes, Punk has not earned this. You combine this with the fact that Rollins has been outspoken for years about his disdain for CM Punk as a self-centered person, and Punk, on the other hand, has taken shots at both WWE and their talent in the past, indirectly targeting Rollins and his generation of talent, including Rollins' former Shield member Roman Reigns. I think that only adds fuel to the fire. And a couple of years ago, there was even this now viral comment that Rollins had made in an interview with Nick Hausman, where Rollins was asked about CM Punk and AEW and everything that went down there, and Rollins just essentially called him a cancer and said that they did not want Punk in WWE. And this confirmed basically everything that had led up to that point, everything that people had said about Punk. And Rollins is far from the only person who has had legitimate gripes and disagreements with Punk. Roman Reigns, who was not keen on Punk when he returned. There are even others out there who have commented to varying degrees, such as Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who legitimately are not necessarily fond of Punk. But despite all of that, WWE is successfully doing something that AEW was incapable of doing. And that is taking all of that heat, taking all of that legitimate controversy that CM Punk brings to the table and turning it into compelling story. And that is where WWE is succeeding, because Seth Rollins, when he cut that promo on Punk, when he went low and he went logical and he took every single shot you could imagine, it was the one time in the last few years that we've seen CM Punk really get cooked on the mic. And I don't mean, oh, he didn't try in this promo, because Punk legitimately tried. He legitimately tried and came back with a pretty good barb about the only reason CM Punk leaving was because of the person who was in charge, that being Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon was pretty fond of Rollins, so he didn't have the same experience, so he couldn't speak on it. But some of the things that Rollins said, leaning into the controversies in AEW, leaning into some of the comments that Punk has made over the past couple of years about people that Rollins was close to, it all led to CM Punk standing there in that ring with the mic in his hand and not really being able to retort in a way that was to the level of Seth Rollins. Rollins was the guy who got away from that promo looking the best. And to quote CM Punk in one of his more infamous lines, "Tell me when I'm telling lies," is something Rollins probably should have said at the end of that promo. So all of that taken into account, this way of storytelling is something I think WWE needs to do. And I think whether you're telling stories with Roman, whether you're telling stories with eventually Kevin Owens, if that ever does happen, because we know that there is legitimate heat there between those two. But when it comes to CM Punk, these are the things you should lead into, because over the past couple of years, these are the things that fans care most about. And if the previous company was not going to be able to do it, WWE needs to prove that they are indeed able to do it. And if this feud is any indication to that so far, they are on top of it and they are doing a fantastic job. But will they continue? I guess we'll see.